Ohio State tight end interviews here at the Woody Hayes Athletic Center on Wednesday, and tight ends coach Keenan Bailey was sort of bemoaning how much Cade Stover had to play last year. Thought he played a lot of snaps, especially if you condense it down to the snaps that happen in a game that aren't blowouts. The huge percentage of the snaps that he was playing, maybe not coincidentally, that Cade Stover was getting kind of banged up down the stretch last year. So can Ohio State play multiple tight ends more in 2023? We know that's something Ryan Day wants to do with the offense, in addition to maybe being something that would take some of the load off of Cade Stover.
Yeah, I asked Keenan Bailey that, just with what they do offensively, do you think you've got 2 or 3 guys that you can go to? And basically he said, yeah, they think they have some options there. Joe Royer's development helps with that. G. Scott, as Ryan Day said, is the best version of G. Scott that he's been. So they've got some options there where it's not just going to feel like it's Cade Stover and then Mitch Rossi in this kind of fullback / tight end role that that he even said that they created for him. That wasn't in the offense before Mitch Rossi showed up here. So it sounds like they've got 3 guys. And that's what this offense needs. They need to be able to go 12 and 13 personnel whenever they need to do that, because that's part of this offense. So I'll say, yes, they can do it. Now, will it be as effective as we've seen in the past with guys like Luke Farrell and Jeremy Ruckert and Jake Hausman? Maybe. We'll see. That's still up for debate here. But it does sound like they've got the option to do it, and now it's about how effective can it be on game day.
And the Cade Stover thing is really, it's almost 2 questions, because one is, do you have a second tight end that you trust in the 11 personnel, the single tight end packages, to play more snaps? I think that's a bigger question than whether they can find a second guy that they're comfortable putting on the field, if that makes sense. Because you can get Royer or Scott to a place where they can come in and be your 12 personnel guy. Maybe both of them. Maybe both of them can do that. I think it's a different question whether one of those guys comes in and is like the primary guy. But Andrew, Ryan Day has, some very NFL based concepts in his offense, obviously, and one of them is like trying to use 2 tight ends. He likes the leverage that gives you on the field. It helps you in the run game sometimes. Do you think Ohio State, despite all of its abundance of receiving talent, needs to find a way back to playing more 12 personnel than they were able to play last year, when they didn't necessarily always have that second guy that they believed they could have out there?
Well, to use a Ryan Day metaphor, I think it would be kind of like your changeup, right? The reason you do 12 personnel, the reason you do those kind of things is because the defense has to match you. And when the defense puts bigger guys on the field, they don't have as many secondary guys on the field. Now all of a sudden you got Emeka and Marv on one side and the other. That's really dangerous for an opposing defense. So that's going to matter. And I think that would be a nice changeup. That would be a nice curveball for them. You don't have to do it all the time. You don't have to do it even a lot. You just can, mix it up, get some short yardage stuff in there. I also think this depends on the offensive tackles too. How do you feel about your left and right tackle situation? Do you feel good about that? Because if you do, then you maybe don't have to use that as much. If you don't, if these tackles need help, that's the one area in the offensive line where you can help. And if we've talked about this for a couple of weeks now, you feel pretty decent about where you're at in the interior. The tackles are where the questions are. So if you have to help these guys on the outside, that's where you could lean into that a little more. You get a chip on a defensive end, especially if, teams are blitzing every play or something like that. Teams just kind of pin their ears back and go. That's going to be, I think, what helps them. So I think it's going to be situational based, and I think it's going to be matchup dependent on who you play.
I actually asked Ryan Day about that back in the spring after one of the scrimmages here, and he said he kind of dismissed that it had anything to do with the offensive line, that they need 12 personnel, they need multiple tight ends on its own merits. But today, Joe Royer has missed some practice. Keenan Bailey was giving us kind of an update on him because he did practice today, and said he caught a big pass downfield, bounced right back up, and then came down and stuck a defensive end in pass pro on the next play. And that reminds you of how important those guys can be in pass protection and things like that, and especially in the run game as blockers. So I think they will play more 12 personnel this year than last year. And the other thing that's hanging out there is that fullback Mitch Rossi hybrid thing. Bailey said they have multiple guys. He didn't want to name them, but that's going to be interesting when they get into 4th down or goal line situations, because a lot of times they'll put out 3 bodies like that. Who are those 3 bodies going to be? Is it Stover, Royer, and Scott, or is there somebody else in the mix? Jelani Thurman as a tight end that's really impressed as a freshman. Who knows how soon he could get on the field. More talk about this on Buckeye Talk, and get the text 614-350-3315 for intel from the rest of preseason camp at Ohio State.